Our first witness is Mr. William Weber. Bill is the Senior Vice President and General Counsel for CBON in Atlanta, Georgia. CBON is a communications service company that provides specialized services, including internet and cloud computing, exclusively to the small businesses nationwide. Bill received his BA from the U.S. Naval Academy and his JD from the University of Georgia. He spent 12 years in the Marine Corps. Thank you for your service. He is testifying on the behalf of CompTel. That's a trade organization. Thank you and welcome. You have 5 minutes to present your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Hahn, distinguished members, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak with you today about what's an incredibly important issue for small businesses across the United States. My company, CBON, represents 60,000 small businesses, and that's the only group of companies that we represent. We don't represent large enterprises or micro businesses. So we have a lot of experience in dealing with the kinds of security issues that they face. But I wanted to start out today to talk to you a little bit about cloud services, what they really are, and how they're being used by small businesses today, because it's easy to get confused about what kind of cloud services small businesses are utilizing. When people talk about cloud services, there are three kinds that they'll talk about. Software as a service, and there are a lot of consumer-focused cloud services that are technically software as a service. Netflix is one, Facebook is another. Small businesses tend to use software as a service providers such as Salesforce.com to help run their Salesforce. You also have platform as a service, which is much more complex. Small businesses tend not to use it. It's kind of an operating system in the cloud. And then the people that we have here talking today are primarily going to be discussing infrastructure as a service. And when you hear people in the cloud industry talk about infrastructure as a service, what we mean are taking things that in the past were physically located on a business's premise and moving them off the premise somewhere. And I think giving you a concrete example of a business that might do this would be helpful. Let's take a typical small business that we might serve, like a doctor's office. They've got 3 physicians working. They've got staff people, 10 PCs, and they very likely have a server on their premise. We say a server, it's just simply a computer that doesn't necessarily have a monitor hooked up to it, but that the other doctors and administrative staff could access their billing software on that server that would be located on their premise. And that would be connected into their premise network via Ethernet cables like you see all over the place. There's a green one right here. You probably have some in the desk in front of you. When we talk about infrastructure as a service, what we're really talking about is taking that server, and if you can imagine extending that Ethernet cable 250 miles into a data center, and now instead of sitting on the premise, that server, with all their billing software on it, customer records on it, is sitting in a data center. And instead of having to buy that as a capital expenditure for the company, that server is rented from a company like mine, CBON, or Rackspace, or any of the other companies that provide servers in the cloud. Now, what are the advantages of doing that? Well, some of the advantages are the small business can preserve capital. Instead of having to do a $2,000 or $3,000 outlay to buy that server, they can rent it by the month from us. Physically, it's much more secure. It's in a data center that has all the most up-to-date firefighting equipment and power backups and everything you can imagine to protect it physically. So those are two of the major advantages they get. Do they get security advantages? They do get security advantages because we can move not only servers off their premise, we can move firewall devices off their premise and they can rent those from us. We can move storage devices off their premise and they can rent those from us. So from a security perspective, rather than being responsible for maintaining the cyber security of that server themselves, which they're not professionals doing, they want to run a doctor's office and that's what they're a professional at, they shift that burden to the cloud provider. And we are experts in that, maintaining the firewalls, maintaining the operating system, making sure virus software is kept up to date, and doing all those things for them. So it sounds like a complex thing, but if you do think about it as simply moving that server that's on your premise into the cloud and letting people who do nothing for their job but think about security for those things maintain it, it can be of tremendous value to small business. Thank you.